And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us late on a Tuesday evening. Thank you guys for bearing with us as it is a one-man show as my help has gone for the week. So I do appreciate you guys being patient at the beginning of our episode here as we got it all shared out to everybody on all of our social media platforms. But first, I want to welcome in all of you guys to the MLB Hot Stove Daily, discuss a little bit here about what we're going to go through. We'll talk a little bit about the MLB breakout candidates for 2025, what those guys are going to look like, some breakout candidates from rookies, guys who could be competing for the AL and NL Rookie of the Year this year. We'll also discuss some of the recent additions we saw today. Craig Kimbrel goes back home to the Atlanta Braves, where he began his career, and the Texas Rangers add some much-needed depth to their starting rotation. And that and much, much more ahead here at the Upside next, here at MLB Hot Stove Daily. Let's begin with the actual news of the day. The Atlanta Braves adding Craig Kimbrel on a minor league deal with a MLB contract worth $2 million attached to it if he makes it to the MLB roster this year. Good get for them as they needed some insurance at the back end of that bullpen. This is not a very big contract, but does give them the late inning insurance that they really do need. Now, are you expecting him to come in and be, vintage Craig Kimbrel? No. But you'd love to get at least some utility out of him before the end of the year and really have him kind of wrap up that final chapter of his career back where it all began in Atlanta. Nostalgia, etc. It all looks good here for the Atlanta Braves. Only upside here on a one-year deal, especially when it's a minor league deal. If he doesn't pitch well in the spring, or if he doesn't pitch well in his ramp up for the season, the spring training part of the season, the extended spring training, obviously they won't call him up, and then you won't have to worry about the $2 million. Remember, the Braves are a team that's really limited as far as the finances that they can ultimately spend, and I think they've chosen well here by going back to the well and bringing back Craig Kimbrel. Now for the Texas Rangers, they have two starting pitchers that are going to miss about a month of the season, if not a lot more. John Gray probably going to be back mid-June at the earliest. Sounds like Bradford could be back in the beginning of May at this point. They keep kind of pushing his timetable down the road here. And when you have an elbow injury, yes, it's absolutely scary, but the initial optimism was that, hey, maybe he's shut down for a week and then he's back throwing. That quickly changed to 3 weeks. That now has changed to a month. And that looks like it's changing into an even longer timetable. So maybe this elbow injury is a little bit more serious than we were originally led to believe. And maybe, just maybe, we could be looking at a more significant injury, possibly even season ending, if this timetable keeps going further down the road. Now again, take all this with a grain of salt. We have no idea if this is just a pure precautionary thing. Maybe they noticed some other things on imaging that doesn't necessarily require them to do any type of surgery. But right now, when you hear elbow injury in a pitcher, red flags, alarm bells, the whole 9 yards goes off there. So wishing both those guys speedy recoveries. But in the meantime, Texas is really going to have to rely on a couple of young starters. Jack Leiter, who's working really hard on developing a new pitch that's worked really well for Clay Holmes. He's really mastered it, and that's part of why he is now the openings day starter for the Mets. But Jack Leiter's working with that same type of a pitch, and we'll have to see if he's as good as advertised this upcoming season. Now, he still has his bouts where he struggles with control, and I still think that's going to be the case the entirety of the season. But can he pull the plane out of that nosedive? Can he avoid just giving up, cruising through 2 innings and then getting to the 3rd inning and then just all heck breaking loose and not being able to settle it down and limit the damage? Can he take that next step in his development and stop the rush of runs there? Is he able to stop the command issues? Is he able to get back on that horse after falling down? Those are the things I'll be watching for early in the season with Jack Leiter. I imagine they'll have a quicker hook earlier in the year as they try to get him used to playing and having good success at the major league level. Then they'll probably let him play a little bit as you go into May and June. And then once you get to pennant race baseball, hey, either you're putting up or you're not. And if he isn't pitching well, he won't be getting the ball that often. So I really think Leiter's going to have a great year this year, but he's going to have to prove it on the field. Kumar Rocker, they're trying to limit his innings this year. He looks like a surefire bet to be in the rotation at some point this season. I'm not saying Corbin immediately goes in the rotation right now, But what I am saying is that now they can space out the innings for Kumar Rocker. If they want Rocker to be at the big league level to start the year and kind of take some of the workload off of him as the year goes along, they now have in-house options that they can turn to fill that role. John Gray, of course, is going to be moved to the 60-day IL in order to make room here for Patrick Corbin. I'm sure they're going to mix up the back end of that bullpen as well. I'm really high on Joe Barlow as far as how he has performed this spring, but we'll see how this bullpen ultimately shapes out. The one advantage that the signing Patrick Corbin does for the Texas Rangers, it gets you somebody with an absolute proven track record of success of being able to stay healthy. Now, of course, he hasn't had great success on the mound the last few years here, as evidenced by his numbers there in his time in Washington. But you know what he did do? He went out there and posted. And every single season, he threw for at least 170 innings and threw 31 starts in each season. Of course, in that COVID-shortened season, he still was able to complete 11 starts as well. He's the modicum of consistency when it comes to availability. Now, performance, obviously, you'd like a little bit better, and the Rangers don't necessarily have to trot him out there every fifth day if he's not producing. I think he'll be used primarily as an innings-eating fifth starter, sixth starter, or a piggyback bullpen arm in their bullpen. He is signed to a one-year deal with $1 million contract anyway with the Rangers, and I do think they will keep him in their bullpen at some points throughout the year. But good on the Rangers for getting them some depth when they absolutely need it. Kent, welcome in. Wyatt Langford for sure a top 50 player this year. Honestly, I would agree with you. I think he's got that potential. I think he has a chance to be a top 10 player by the end of the year. And let's go ahead and start our discussion with some of the breakout candidates for 2025. Wyatt Langford, for me, is the A-plus gold standard of a breakout candidate this year. He just looks so much more poised, comfortable in the box. He just looks ready for everything that's coming his way this year. And he reminds me a lot of the way Corey Seager kind of goes about his business. Doesn't talk a whole lot. But when he does, it's impactful, but he mainly lets his game do the talking for him. And, in that way, he kind of reminds me of Corey Seager, kind of a right-handed version of him, and I think he's going to be hitting right behind Corey Seager all year long. Rangers got a good one there in Wyatt Langford. Who are some other, candidates that could be breakout stars this year? Well, one team that kind of comes to mind here, you're looking at the Boston Red Sox and all the negativity around the Alex Bregman, Rafael Devers situation. They got so many good young players coming. Mayer. They got Abreu in the outfield who had a great rookie season last year. They got Campbell over there at second base. They've got a young, very good young core group coming. Roman Anthony is another one. I don't necessarily think any one of those guys is going to vault themselves into, say, top 50 candidacy, but I think they're definitely breakout candidates this year. Now, going back to kind of an old head here would be Alex Bregman. I think there's a really good chance he has a, quote, breakout season for the Boston Red Sox. Understandably, his numbers were down a couple of times, or each of the last 2 years anyway, with the Houston Astros. And basically from the end of May through the end of the year anyway, Bregman looked a lot more like his usual self. And by the way, if you believe anything about past history with Alex Bregman, he is the second best hitter ever in Fenway Park's history, second only to Ted Williams. Tells you just how good he is in that ballpark. Do I expect him to play at that level? Of course not. That would be unrealistic to expect for a 162-game season. However, with that being said, I do think players feel a certain level of comfortability in a certain ballpark. Of course, they're still going up against a pitcher on the mound, the opposing team, etc., etc. But to me, Bregman, I think, can handle those kinds of things in Boston. I actually think he'll feed off of the rivalries in that division. And, of course, he's playing for his next contract. So there's a real chance he could be a, quote, breakout star. Even though I still think he's a very good player, I don't think anybody puts them in that top 10, top 20 conversation. I think they put him in that borderline top 50, top 100 conversation. But I think this is a year that could really catapult him into being the, without a doubt, best player on the Boston Red Sox right now. Rafi Devers, by far the best bat. But if we're to believe that the numbers might be replicable for Bregman and from what we've seen from his past, then he could obviously outperform Devers. Devers, of course, a negative piece on the diamond defensively. Bregman, a gold glove ability over there at first base. He's kind of a breakout candidate that we've all seen for years now that could really ascend to the next level. By the same token, however, maybe those lofty expectations are lofty for a reason. Over a 162-game season, it's not realistic to expect those things, and we should continue to expect a downward trend in his offensive production. I think there's legitimate cases to be made for both, but I'd keep an eye on Alex Bregman as a, quote, breakout candidate this year. Steven, Brett Beatty, hopefully it's his last chance. I'll agree with you there. There's a lot of players on their last chance or final options anyway with teams. Beatty is one player that really comes to mind for me because I think the Mets, if they don't get a long-term answer over there at third base this year, I think they'll go ahead and add Vladimir Guerrero, whether they keep Alonso or not. Then Guerrero goes over to third base most likely, or they do some type of DH situation. But this is a make or break season for Beatty. Otherwise, I think he could lose his spot in the lineup. There are other options there at the Mets in-house that they could utilize. But we'll see how this Mets team ultimately shakes out. Some other players that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Matt Shaw of the Chicago Cubs. This is a team that needed an impact bat here this offseason, not named Kyle Tucker. They added Kyle Tucker, great get for them, but they didn't really supplement this roster at all. They're counting on a lot of young guys, PCAs having a really strong spring training. If he can really elevate offensively, that'd be a great thing for them. But my eyes are trained on Matt Shaw and what he can bring to the ball club. Can he be a next Nolan Arenado? Maybe. But I think that's very lofty expectations for a guy that really hasn't played baseball at the major league level yet. So I want to see him get his feet underneath him and really prove his worth on the field before we give him that type of expectation. But to me, he is a prime breakout candidate for the Chicago Cubs. Now, the Los Angeles Dodgers, you think they've got pretty much everybody already under contract, all the big fish. Nobody could really come out of nowhere with the Los Angeles Dodgers. One player I would kind of hold their horses on is going to be Dalton Rushing, a guy who's going to play a little bit behind the plate, a little bit in the outfield. I think he's got a really good chance anyway this year to make a solid impact. And if you're on a team like the Dodgers, you're going to get to the postseason. If you're on that postseason roster, that's where names get made. And we could really see that from a guy like Dalton Rushing. As far as other established major leaguers, besides rookies anyway, that should be making a name for themselves this year, I look at the Seattle Mariners. They already have a great rotation. I don't think anybody argues that it's one of the best in the game, if not the very best. But to me, Logan Gilbert, he looks every bit the part of an ace, the number one on a team. Does he elevate and become the league's best starting pitcher, entering into that Cy Young caliber conversation? I think he does. He is that talented to me. I'd love to see him be able to do it for the full 162 as far as stay healthy and all that kind of thing. But he's been relatively healthy so far. I just worry about there being an overuse question there in Seattle. They have a pretty good bullpen, but I think they're going to ride that rotation as much as they can. And I think that's going to work to his detriment. But I think he is primed for a Cy Young caliber season should he stay healthy. Other players that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, I want to do one more for the National League anyway. And for me, that's going to be Jurickson Profar. Not because of necessarily breaking out and making a huge impact, elevating his numbers, that kind of thing, but for what he's going to do for Atlanta itself. He's going to plug a lot of holes. Ronald Acuna back probably sometime before the All-Star break. Probably we're looking in June, it sounds like, at the earliest. That means Profar is going to be getting a ton of playing time in Ronald Acuna's spot and in the leadoff position there in Atlanta. He's going to give them everything they could ever have wanted from a fill-in guy who's taking over for the face of the franchise, at least for a couple of months. Plus, you get the added benefit of Orlando Arcia's struggles over there at shortstop. Of course, they have been in talks anyway over the last year or so about the possibility of bringing in Bo Bichette. That still remains a possibility at the deadline. But you already have an in-house option to me in Jurickson Profar if you wanted to do that. I think he's ready-made for this Atlanta Braves team. I think they're in really good shape because of what they did by bringing in a utility-type player that'll be able to fill in all kinds of holes for them throughout the entirety of the season. And I'm really excited to see what he does there in Atlanta. He was one of my favorite players, when he was coming up with the Texas Rangers. Rangers really did not utilize him very well at the big league level at any given time. And so, I'm very happy to see him finally secure that long-term deal. After the career he's had, he deserves to have that kind of stability for his future. And I think Atlanta got a heck of a player for the price as well. I thought he'd be getting a little bit more in free agency. But as far as a breakout, I think the respectability for Profar's game is really going to be noticeable on the diamond for them. All right. One other player I did want to mention as well in that same breath as Wyatt Langford is Jackson Merrill. I think he's going to be in that same spot in that lineup with the San Diego Padres in that 3 spot where Langford's going to be for the Rangers. And both of those guys could really take off this year. Like, we're talking all-stars, we're talking futures, faces of the game, we're talking consistent rivalry, AL, NL, if they get to be that level of player. I think both of those players, the future is in whatever they're able to accomplish. I don't think I'd put any restraints on what they could really do at the big league level. They both have speed, both have pretty solid power. Bat to ball skills are all really good. Defensive versatility is also a gem for them. I'm really excited to see what those two really look like going into the years in the future. You look at years gone by where you had Bryce Harper versus Mike Trout. Who's the better outfielder in the game? Now, both of those guys had much bigger pedigrees. I think the draft has kind of gotten watered down as far as how people cover it over the last, say, 5-10 years. I do like the way baseball is at least trying to move the draft and so forth, try to get different fan bases involved in it. And I think it's worked by and large. I love the one when it came to Texas. Just the way they built that one up looked great. But on the field, can Langford and Merrill live up to the hype of what, say, a Harper versus Trout? I think that's really lofty expectations. I wouldn't necessarily put it at that height, but I think we're talking about a very comparable situation here where you're looking at probably the 2 or 3 best players in the game at some point in the very near future. I think Langford gets into that top 10, top 20 conversation this year. Merrill, I think, could be right on his heels, and then we're looking great for the future of Major League Baseball. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to be doing a power ranking show tomorrow. Just really excited to see baseball finally get started. Dodgers did win in the opener of the season, if you will. Opening day for me is actual opening day. I will say that once again. The international series to me, all well and good, but to me that's not opening day. Opening day is when all the teams are in action on that day, and that's when we have, the natural opening day. International series is great. That's the time to do it. I would also like to see them be a little bit more consistent with the the Hall of Fame type of things as far as, trying to remember the name of the field. Doubleday Field, playing in the Field of Dreams, those types of things. I'd like to see them do a week of that, going to different landmarks around the history of the game and saying, hey, this is the one baseball of the game, let's celebrate this at the Field of Dreams. This is the one game of the day, let's celebrate it at the Baseball Hall of Fame. This is the one day we'll honor the Negro Leagues. I'd love to see them do something like that. Same kind of thing in the NFL where they're trying to go international, week to week, over a period of 4 to 6 weeks now to try to broaden the game internationally. How about just make the entire week international week? You have one game in London, one game in France, another game in Spain, another game in Mexico, and just kind of branch out your product all over the world, and then have everybody either have a bye week before or after to allow their players to adjust to the travel, and then you're good to go. I can't say that's an original idea for me. I will say that. I believe it was Nick Wright who was mentioning that one on his podcast. And I just really love that idea. If you're looking to grow the game, instead of making it so gimmicky with these, 4 weeks of international games with, teams just trying not to lose a home game and just saying, hey, we need to, sell more tickets if I'm Jacksonville, so I'll go ahead and be the pseudo London team as a result. Nah, get out of here with that. Let's go ahead and get more realistic with our approach. If going international is a legitimate goal, then make a serious effort at it and do a whole international week. But as far as baseball, I think they could do something very similar with other areas of the game that have impacted the history of the game. The Field of Dreams game, that was absolutely phenomenal. The White Sox and Yankees, the first time that happened, Tim Anderson making that huge home run. That game was absolutely wonderful to watch, and it was really special to see. I would love to see them do something like that year in and year out. Does it make it less special if it's every year? To me, no. You just have alternating teams. It's a once, every, 15-year chance that your team is going to be in that game. You're darn right your market is going to be tuning in along with the rest of Major League Baseball because that's going to be the only game on the calendar. Make it an event. And I'd love to see baseball do something like that. It'd be another property for them to be able to market to television advertisers as well, in order to get even more money from those guys. So win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. Steven, baseball does a poor job promoting itself. I'll agree with you there, and that's why I'm kind of saying, hey, do the whole Doubleday Field. Go ahead and do the Negro Leagues. Go ahead and do the Field of Dreams game. Go ahead and do the College World Series going to Iowa. Heck, go to Cape Cod. Do something like that. I'd love to see baseball do things like that. If there's an old stadium still standing that hasn't been used, maybe for one game you make sure, of course, that the stadium is still standing and can be used. And then maybe you revisit the idea of going somewhere like that, like a historical site. Not just necessarily to an old stadium, but just to see like the history of the game and just, it's called America's pastime. How about we incorporate the pastime a little bit more while still keeping it here in the present? But I'll agree with you there. Baseball does a very poor job of promoting itself. All right, let me go ahead and pull up my screen here. Just want to pull up MLB trade rumors, see if anything is happening. Dodgers already making some movement with their roster. Doesn't look like anything else is happening at the moment. Let me double check X and see if anything is going on this evening. A lot of Rule 5 draftees were returned this spring. Craig Kimbrel, of course, going to the Braves, as we mentioned, off the top. Patrick Corbin gives you some length for the Rangers. Mayo and Basayo are now, Mayo anyway is headed to AAA. Players Association thinking of a grievance against the Marlins, to nobody's surprise. Patrick Murphy gave up a run finally for the Rangers, so maybe he won't make the opening day roster. Roki Sasaki makes his debut tomorrow. Just double check and make sure I haven't missed anything. Doesn't look like it. Okay. One last thing I wanted to do with you guys is just have a little bit of fun. Now, I've done some trades over the last couple of days with names that we've seen out there, but one thing I wanted to do with you guys is just kind of look at some trades that we haven't done so far. For instance, like the Toronto Blue Jays could be in a very difficult situation as far as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Are they going to be able to keep him? Are they not? To me, this is a team that should have sold if Vladdy did not agree to a contract to enter spring training. Not that they should have waited this long anyway. I thought they should have gotten this done a year ago, but here we are. No extension is done. Looks like he's headed towards free agency. If you have questions about whether you're a legitimate suitor for him long term, there should be no hesitation as far as trading him. The real question is, if he does say that he's willing to come back, are you willing to take his word for it, or would you try to maximize the return? Here's the other caveat. Remember what the Los Angeles Angels decided to do with Shohei Ohtani? Instead of saying, hey, wave the white flag, we're 7 games out of a wild card, this would not be the time we're buying, we should go ahead and sell our assets, trade Shohei and get 5 pieces back, just punt on the year and realize, this is not it. This is not our year, it's time to rebuild. Instead of doing something like that, they added at the deadline, bringing in C.J. Cron, Randall Grichuk, basically trading away the last remaining good pieces out of their farm system. Did it work? Is there another ring, World Series championship ring on Shohei Ohtani's finger? No. The only championship he's gotten is with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Angels, the way they handled that whole situation, completely terrible from top to bottom. And, as far as the Toronto Blue Jays go, they could be looking at something very similar here with Vlad. Maybe they decide, hey, we're 2 games out of the wild card. Vladdy's still here. Why don't we try to make a push for the wild card, see if we can win a round in the postseason, and use that as a platform to convince him to stay long term. May work, but the more realistic approach is, hey, you didn't get the job done. You didn't get the extension done. Looks like he's going to test the waters in free agency and we lose him for basically a compensation pick. Is that worth Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? No. So, if you're going to do it, though, you have to go out there and try to add wherever you can. So to me, they were looking for some starting pitching, and to me, that's where I would start. This would be kind of the delusional GM there in Toronto, trying to convince Vladdy that this is the right place to be. But where could they go to find an ace? We talked a little bit about Freddie Peralta. We talked a little bit about Framber Valdez. I don't think they're going to trade him at this point. We talked a lot about the Diamondbacks and the depth in their starting. They could trade one. Guardians don't really look like they can trade you one. Mariners may trade you one at the deadline, but as of right now, doesn't look like it. Marlins absolutely will trade you a piece, and that's where I would look to go. Now, they're looking to trade pretty much any and all pieces that are not nailed down. I think Yuri Perez, the one piece they might actually hold on to because he is so young. But Sandy Alcantara, you trade him to the Blue Jays. Remember, they're looking for young pieces back, so let's keep that in mind when we go over here to the Blue Jays. All right, you get an 18-year-old shortstop, Namala. And then you have to go all the way down here to Landon Muratis to get to 19 to be able to get to the value that they're looking for. Is that going to get it done from the Marlins? No. Let's go to another team. The Minnesota Twins. They've already come together on a trade before, trading away Jose Barrios. Would be interesting to see them go back to the well here. Now, who could they bring in? Ober, Ryan, Lopez. I think Lopez makes the most money, makes a lot of sense for him to be the piece going out. So let's go ahead and add him to the trade here to the Blue Jays. Now remember, this is a buy now, win now move for them. So what could they do? You're probably going to have to include, let's see here, we got Namala in there. You could probably include Martinez. Instead, though, let's go with Ricky Tiedemann. Gives them a starting pitcher to kind of throw into their rotation mix. Need about 13 more. Couple older prospects might be in the offing here. Go back to the Twins, make a difference, etc. I'm going to go Maraudis as one of the pieces here. That's pretty close. Namala, Tiedemann, Roden, and Maraudis for Pablo Lopez to the Blue Jays. Now, this would be a trade deadline deal. This would be them trying to make one last attempt to Vladdy to say, hey, we're willing to do everything it takes, even though Vladdy says he's not going to negotiate during the year. But this would be the type of trade, if I'm the Blue Jays and I'm trying to compete and win now, save my job in the front office, that would be the type of trade I think would give you some long-term runway here with Pablo Lopez that would justify the cost in giving up probably your top prospect here in this deal. You're in a win now 2025 mode. You can't really be worried about your prospect system when your stated goal is to win now. One last one we'll do on the National League side of things. And to me, the Philadelphia Phillies did not shake up their roster enough. Now, the one thing that they could do is they have Alec Bohm that they could utilize or they could use in a trade, but you're going to need a piece back in return. Welcome in, Mark. Corbin is an innings eater. That is it. True, but I think that they're going to be cherry picking when they use him. So I don't think his ERA will be as inflated as it was with the Nationals. He's there to eat innings. Say there's a blowout game, you're losing 15-4, and it's only the fifth inning. Guess who's going to be coming in out of that bullpen to mop up those innings? That's right, it's Corbin, Patrick Corbin there. Say you're losing 7-1, bottom of the eighth inning, and you're just trying to get through the inning to the ninth. Patrick Corbin. Say you've exhausted all your starting pitcher. Your bullpen's completely exhausted after a 12-inning game the night before. You had a couple of injuries, whatever the case may be. The bullpen's really not healthy. You need somebody to eat some innings that day. That's what Patrick Corbin's going to give you. But back to our point here about the Phillies. What piece could they do to really shake this team up? To me, they've already added enough to that rotation. They're already pretty good. I would not have made the trade for Luzardo, but that's already done at this point. Where could they really instill just a little jolt of electricity into this team? And to me, that's going to be in the bullpen for one, and it's going to be in that in that last spot in the rotation, another, and then also maybe another bench bat for them. Nobody really big here. But the Phillies, they don't have a lot of money to spend. You can't really go to the top of the market for any of the options anyway. So where would they go to kind of give themselves a little bit of a jolt? And to me, if you're looking to trade Alec Bohm, there's a couple of teams that I know would have interest. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a 3-team deal. And the piece I'm trading away to kind of shake up this roster a little bit is indeed Alec Bohm. 2 years, $19 million owed, roughly. You got about 23 field value. So kind of keep that number in mind. Who would want Alec Bohm at the prices that they would need? A's have already expressed a little bit of interest. Of course, they're not willing to trade Mason Miller. Who else would need another third baseman? Yankees come to mind. They don't have a lot of money to really spend, though. But this would be an option I think they could scrounge enough pennies together to be able to get it done if the right opportunity came along. So Bohm goes to the Yankees. I don't think this would really happen unless there was a really nice return coming back to the Phillies in return. So who also has a third base option that could go to Philadelphia to at least fill in some of the holes there? And you guessed it, we're going to the Minnesota Twins. Twins have some starting pitching that can go to the Yankees. They have some offensive pieces that could fill in for Bohm. They're a really good team that's going to be a nice trade partner for a bunch of different teams out there at the trade deadline. So where could the Twins go if you're not getting Alec Bohm? What would really help out the Philadelphia Phillies from your roster first? So let's go there. You need to fill in the spot, so who do you go with? So to me, Jose Miranda is the easy fill-in here, basically half the price. Gives you a longer term asset for the future as well. So you include him in the return to Philadelphia. Now you have about another $11 million with which to play with. So kind of keep that number in mind. Yankees are going to have to give up something in that $23 million range to be able to bring in Alec Bohm as well. So 23 mil, you're looking for a piece around 23. Lombard might be your carrying piece here, and that would be the piece that would go to the Twins and make it make sense for them. Will Warren has been a consistent ask. I don't think this would be the trade that would get it done, though. So I think they would hold on to him. Then I think you'd go with some of their younger starting pitchers. Lane comes to mind as an easy fit here. He would go to the Twins. Looking at where our value is at here. Need about another 2 and change. And to me, that's where I go get Hampton, the injured starting pitcher, who will be back after Tommy John this year. Goes to the Twins. Give them some long-term options in the rotation. Now, you're getting about 23. The value you're giving up is around 12. So what else could help out the Phillies to make this trade happen? Let me clear out third base. So again, we're looking for around 12 value. Jose Miranda was 1. We already filled that spot. Phillies could obviously go with Willie Castro. I'd like that one for them. That might actually be where I go. They could go Correa, but I don't think so. Maybe they go out there and get another Willie Castro type piece to help them right now. The other one would be Johan Duran. Juan Duran, not sure how to pronounce his first name anyway, but Duran goes to the Phillies. That's going to be a little bit of a pricey ad. Then you're going to have to give up another 14 in value. What would it take here? Phillies around 14 just to kind of finish this one off. Say you give up Rojas. Let's say you go a little younger. Burkhalter to the Twins. Need to give about another 7. And then we're pretty dang close here. Moises Chase, maybe. Take out the outfielder, go a little bit cheaper. No, I'm going to leave him in. And then another 2 mil piece. Let's go to the bullpen at the major league level for the Twins, just to round out this deal. Bader, Paddock, Buxton could be an interesting one. But I think Danny Colome is a middle relief option going to the Phillies, who they seem to continually strike rich on. This is a lot of moving pieces here. Basically, the Twins are getting Lombard and a grab bag full of nice younger pieces in exchange for Duran and Colome. Let's validate it, fair trade, and post it. And let's take a look and see if this trade makes sense. So the Yankees end up with Bohm. They give up Hampton, Lombard, Lane. Honestly, not a bad deal for them. I would actually do that for the Yankees. Twins, you're giving up Duran, Colome, and Miranda. And in exchange, you're getting Lombard as your headliner. Chase, Burkhalter, Hampton, and Lane. I actually like that return for the Twins. If I'm the Phillies, I'm giving up Alec Bohm. Did I get enough back to be able to get this deal done? You're getting an elite closer with control. Miranda's a nice piece, very comparable to me at least for Alec Bohm. Bohm, of course, a little bit better player. But not too bad. I kind of like this deal overall. Steven, will you be doing a fantasy draft show? I've been contemplating that one. If I get enough interest anyway, I've got a couple people messaging me over on our socials about a fantasy draft show. If we do one, it'll probably be Sunday if I had to guess. But we'll see what kind of interest we have in it. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Remember, tomorrow we are going to be doing our updated MLB Power Ranking show to kind of adjust for all the different injuries we've seen with the Yankees, Mets, Rangers, among several other big-time injuries, including the Mariners and Orioles as well. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Stay safe out there, everybody.